Hello, YouTube friends. I have a little bit of work to do when it comes to catching up on these Icad videos, so I'm excited to be sharing this one with you today, and I'll be kind of putting some more out pretty quickly, I think, over the next week or so, but maybe not too much to bombard you, but I have some fun ones coming up. So I have my 3 by 5 inch Icad, which stands for Index Card a Day, by the way, and this newer piece of chipboard from Umwow Studio called the Dahlia Mandala, and I designed this to go with one of my new paper lines with 7 Dot Studio. So I really love this piece. It's big, it's bold, it's beautiful, and wait until you see what happens when I add some color to it. I put it down on my sheet with some heavy gel medium, and then you'll see there I just cleaned out all of the little crevices and openings that the Dahlia has, because I didn't want to lose that depth. Like, I have this really thick chipboard and I want it to be really thick, so if I left all of those little crevices filled in with gel medium, then I would lose some of that detail and some of that depth. So I just used a small paintbrush and some water, warm water, to clean up around the edge of the chipboard, and I made sure that it was very, very, very secure on the card and dried completely before I moved on to this next step, which is applying some gesso. So I'm using some Liquitex gesso, and this is a pretty like drawn out process, this part here, because similar to the gel medium, I have to keep going back into all those crevices and reworking them and making sure that the gesso isn't too thick in there, because I really don't want to lose that depth. So I am applying the gesso, and then I'm going back in and kind of working the gesso around on the inside and making sure that every area and edge or surface is covered, and then I have to move that gesso around and apply that so that everything's covered and it's not too thick. So I'm kind of like drying and then adding and then drying and then adding and moving around. The other thing is that my chipboard, because it's laser cut and the chip is so thick and like durable, I mean, it's awesome. It's really awesome chipboard if you've never worked with it before, but it's laser cut, so it has an ashy edge. So sometimes when you're adding wet mediums to it, and you haven't cleaned the edges, and there's no way I was cleaning all the edges on this little piece, the ash will get picked up by your wet mediums. So then I knew that I was going to add a bunch of beautiful rainbow colors, inspired by Jen Ingle and Tracy, who asked to see a rainbow card. I knew I was going to add bright colors, so I wanted my background, my starting card, to be super stark white. So I did 2 or 3 layers of gesso in there, just so I didn't have that funny ash hanging out. Then I got my favorite colors of Dina Wakley Heavy Body Acrylic, and I like all kinds of acrylic paints. I do realize that I've been going back to these ones because they're like easy to hold, and I have a lot of them. I love them for jelly printing, and they're just hanging around on my desk right now. So I do love a lot of excuse me, a lot of acrylic paints, but I also really love Dina's. So they're heavy body and they have really big, bold, bright, beautiful colors, and that helps me too when I don't have to stress about mixing my own colors. I do like to mix my own colors occasionally, but I also really like to be able to use paint straight out of the bottle. So I've put out my 6 colors of the rainbow: yellow, green, blue, purple, red, and orange. And here's a little tip: if you're going to be working in gradients or rainbows or things like that, just put the paints out on your palette in the order you want to use them, and then you're not going to get confused later, especially when you're in the midst of your artsy endeavors and use the wrong color. Then I flooded my card with water, but it wasn't thick. It was sort of just dampening it up a little bit so that I would have some working time with my acrylics. Because acrylics are water-based, if you add a very small amount of water to them, then you can work with them a little bit longer. And then I applied my colors in a rotating fashion on my card in the rainbow. And where the colors met in the edges, then I took a little bit of time and worked those together to create a more gradient effect. So between the orange and the yellow, I have a yellow-orange. And between the green and the yellow, I have a yellow-green, etc. Between the teal and the purple, I have sort of like a beautiful berry color. And then I got back out some gesso, and I did use my thin gesso for this rather than my heavy body gesso. I want to highlight that dahlia. I don't want to lose it in the background, and it's such a cool technique just to throw a little bit of gesso on top and pick up all the texture. And then I'll do it around the edge of the card as well. And then I just have this really beautiful card base to play on. Now, I mentioned that I did use my thin gesso rather than my thick gesso because I just wanted to highlight the dahlia, not completely cover it. Easy peasy. Oh, and then that center of the dahlia, my rainbow didn't exactly work out in there, and it was a little bit irritating that there was kind of just like this weird color in the middle, so I just colored it white. At first, I was a little upset that I did it, and I thought, man, now it looks like there's a big gaping hole in the middle of my card, but it works out in the end. So don't forget to trust yourself. I have at my Posca paint pen. I have been doing a lot of this, so in my art making and my whatever, experimenting and having fun, especially with these Icads and in my art journal and things like that, I have been doing a lot of doodling and mark making, and the reason is because I want to, and I'm trying to tell myself that if I want to do it, I should. I shouldn't stress so much and be like, oh, but like sometimes I get worried and I say, oh, so-and-so does that, but I love that so-and-so does that, and as long as I remember to say, hey, I love when Birgit Koopson doodles on her artwork, I'm going to try it too, then I should be fine. I got to remember that because I love artists and I love being inspired, and I am inspired. So anyway, so you'll see I've been playing with that and trying to figure out how much I love it and which pieces I love to do and like which marks I like to make and which marks are my own and which marks did I find from somebody else, and I love it. I just have been loving doodling on my pages and on my artwork in general. And sometimes I'm using paint markers and sometimes I'm using crappy old pens, and it doesn't even matter. It's just fun. Sometimes pencil. Coming up in one Icad, I actually get adventurous and I do a little mark making with a colored pencil, and that's pretty exciting too. Anyways, back to work here. Oh, don't you love these itty bitty Tim Holtz scissors? They're so adorable. I can't even put my fingers through them almost. Anyways, I have you saw I have some black thread. I have one of Tim Holtz's paper dolls, this little like sort of like Ranger Scout, and then I have 2 layers of butterflies. The butterflies come from his ephemera pack. I'll have to double check which one it is. I think it's Emporium, but I'll definitely make sure that I have it listed below. And in the supplies list, I am, oh, look here. Okay, so this is a really cool, geez, sorry. A really cool technique. So I wanted to, first I darkened the bottom butterfly with a Stabilo, which is a really great thing to just have laying around, your Stabilo. And then I wanted to pop up the second butterfly and the boy in more dimension because I already have so much great dimension going on. So what I did was I took some scrap pieces of chipboard that I had hanging out on my desk, and I used those in place of dimensional adhesive because I couldn't find my dimensional adhesive, and the last dimensional adhesive that I pulled out was crappy. So it's very easy. I just put gel medium down, then the pieces of chipboard, then gel medium, and my piece again. And then, have you seen this washi tape? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Have you seen this washi tape from Dina Wakley? So it is so cool. It's this kind of like cloudy white color, almost like tissue paper, but it doesn't have anything on it. So you can write on it or stamp on it or do whatever you want. So that's what I did. I wrote on it. And it looks so fun, and I love it. And it's my own handwriting, but it's still on washi tape. It's really cool, and it creates a really nice base. Then I had some of these scraps left over from that beautiful texture stamp that Dina has, and that last Icad, not the very last Icad, but that Icad I worked with all the purple colors. Yeah, I'll link to that at the end of the video. So it is so cool. I thought, you know, this card needs a little more contrast on it. So I just kind of ripped out some of these small circles that come from her big texture background. The circles that I liked the most, like this one with the center missing. It's really fun. And I'm using some watered down gel medium to glue these on. And now the idea of stamping on tissue paper, and I may just have my tissue paper upside down or have used like maybe a little bit of tissue paper that's too dark. But the idea of using tissue paper, if you rip the edges and then you collage it this piece down, the tissue paper is supposed to disappear into the background. So I have had some work very successfully, and I've had some others work unsuccessfully. This one's kind of in the middle, and it's okay. I actually like the way it works out. So here I decided that at first I thought the circles weren't dark enough, so then I was going to color them in with a pen, and then they got too dark, and I didn't really like it, so I wiped it off. As that pen that I was using, it's a Pilot G2 pen, and my local friend Lissa turned me on to that pen. I love it, and it's really fun to play with and to write with in your art journaling and any mixed media whatevers, but it's not permanent, so sometimes that comes in handy because I was able to wipe it off. Then I used a little bit of my Sharpie pen to add some dots to the bottom butterfly wings so that they just weren't completely disappearing into the background. I got back out that black thread I was sort of playing with earlier. I got a new free stitching, a free motion stitching foot for my sewing machine, so I have been playing with it, and I have some excess thread hanging around. And yeah, so I wanted to incorporate that on a card. And I'm overlaying that on the handwritten Dina Wakley tape. And I'm just using some gel medium to kind of put it down. And I struggled a little bit there. It's not always an easy process, but I swear the struggle is worth it. And glue down my beautiful little butterfly boy, and he has extra dimension on him, and the card has dimension, and there's fibers from the strings, and there's some handwriting, and some beautiful rainbow paint in the background. And then I have these words from the collection that I designed for 7 Dot Studio called Dreamscapes. It says Lost in the Clouds. And that's it. We're done with this card. There you see. Look at all that to mention. Thanks so much for joining me. Here is a link to that video that I used the big